My wife and I spent almost 15 years chasing what I used to call the American Dream package. You know the one. House, nice neighborhood, 2 kids. My name is Scott. I'm 44 years old, an engineer, a husband, a father, and according to my children, a man whose sense of humor was permanently frozen somewhere around 2017. Personally, I disagree. For years, Jen and I lived in a smaller house across town. Nothing wrong with it. It had walls. It had a roof. The plumbing only declared war on us twice. But Jennifer always dreamed bigger. She wanted one of those neighborhoods where people casually say things like, "Oh, we're doing margaritas by the pool tonight." Meanwhile, I grew up in a family where pool meant your cousin putting a garden hose into an inflatable ring from Walmart. Different worlds. Still, I loved seeing Jennifer excited. And after years of overtime, saving, budgeting, and resisting the urge to buy unnecessary power tools, we finally bought our dream home. Big backyard, beautiful deck, enough space for Ethan, our 16-year-old son, to avoid us in comfort. Enough space for Lily, our 13-year-old daughter, to practice dance routines while pretending she wasn't secretly watching whether boys liked her videos. And enough space for me to fulfill my greatest middle-aged fantasy. I'm talking about owning an absurdly expensive grill. Gentlemen, if you've reached your 40s, you understand. At some point, your personality becomes 60% lawn equipment and 40% opinions about meat temperature. I embraced my destiny. I bought the grill. Not just any grill. A monster. This thing had more buttons than the cockpit of a small aircraft. When the delivery guy brought it, I swear I almost saluted. Jennifer laughed at me. "Scott, you're acting like you adopted a child." "No," I said. "A child eventually leaves home. This beauty will stay loyal forever." She rolled her eyes, but she was smiling. Back then, she smiled a lot. And honestly, those first months in the new house were incredible. I built the deck myself, not because I'm particularly talented, mostly because YouTube exists, and apparently confidence is louder than common sense. Then came the pool. That pool nearly ended my relationship with concrete. I spent weekends watching tutorials from men named Rick, who somehow knew everything. Today we're installing drainage systems. Thanks, Rick. My own father barely taught me how to change a tire, but Rick from Arizona practically raised me. After months of work, sweat, swearing, and at least 3 emotional breakdowns in Home Depot, we finally had it. The backyard Jennifer always wanted, and seeing her face that first evening made every penny worth it. She stood there barefoot beside the water, smiling like she'd just won the lottery. "It's beautiful," she whispered. I wrapped my arm around her. "We did it." "No," she said softly. "You did." To this day, I still remember that moment, because later, I'd wonder where that woman went. But back then, life felt perfect. Summer arrived, and suddenly our house became party headquarters. Apparently, once you own a pool, people you've never met develop lifelong emotional attachments to you. Neighbors started coming over, kids everywhere, barbecues, football games on the patio TV, music, cold drinks, the smell of burgers. Honestly, those evenings became my favorite part of life. I loved grilling. I loved seeing the kids laughing. I loved hearing Jennifer chatting with everyone. She was beautiful when she was happy. People naturally liked her. Sometimes I joked that if civilization collapsed, she'd probably become mayor of the survivors by Wednesday. And I was fine with that, because I never needed to be the center of attention. I was perfectly happy being the guy behind the grill. I liked making people comfortable. Maybe that's the engineer in me. We're strange people. Give us appreciation and a spreadsheet, and we'll fight dragons for you. For almost a year, that's exactly how our life felt. Then our new neighbors moved in, and I honestly thought they were going to be the best thing that ever happened to our street. Looking back now, it's funny how disasters rarely arrive looking like disasters. Sometimes they arrive carrying a toolbox and smiling. The new neighbors moved in sometime in early June. I remember because it was 94 degrees outside. and I was pretending to enjoy yard work. Men just reach a certain age and collectively agree to lie about it. Oh yeah, I love mowing the lawn. Anyway, I was out front watering flowers Jennifer had insisted we needed when a moving truck pulled up next door. I expected the usual. A stressed-out couple, a guy yelling at a couch, someone crying over a missing box. Instead, out stepped a 6'2" man carrying what looked like half the truck by himself. Broad shoulders, athletic build, easy smile. The kind of guy toothpaste commercials are based on. Great. Naturally, I hated him immediately. Not really, but a little. He noticed me and waved. "Hey, Eric Walker." I walked over and shook his hand. "Scott, please tell me this neighborhood has decent people." "Depends," I said. "How do you feel about dads arguing over steak temperatures?" He laughed. "Sounds promising." And that was my first impression of Eric. Friendly, easygoing, normal. A few minutes later, another car pulled into the driveway. A girl climbed out carrying 2 boxes at once. 19, maybe 20. Dark hair, college sweatshirt, immediately exhausted. "That's my daughter Emily," Eric said. "Home from college for the summer." Emily looked at him. "Dad, if you make me unpack another box, I'm legally changing my name." I liked her instantly. She had the sarcasm of a woman raised by a single father. I respected that. Within an hour, Jennifer was outside introducing herself. Within 2 hours, she'd learned where Eric grew up, where Emily went to school, and somehow convinced both of them to come over for burgers that evening. My wife could gather people faster than Amazon Prime. That first dinner was actually fun. Eric turned out to be a former firefighter, divorced. His marriage had ended several years earlier. No drama, no ugly stories, just one of those things that happens when life goes sideways. Emily mostly teased him nonstop, which apparently was their love language. By the end of the evening, Ethan was talking football with Eric. Lily had somehow convinced Emily to help her make TikTok videos. Jennifer was glowing. And honestly, I thought we'd hit the jackpot. "See?" Jennifer told me later that night. "Good neighbors." "Yep. And Eric seems nice." "He does. He built that entire shed himself." I looked up from brushing my teeth. "Jennifer." "What?" "I assembled a pool." "That's different." "Because?" "You watched YouTube." "Rick from Arizona and I are deeply offended." She laughed. And that was that. At first, nothing seemed unusual. Eric just became Eric. The guy everyone liked. If Mrs. Dawson's garbage disposal broke, Eric helped. If somebody needed extra chairs for a party, Eric had them. If kids wanted to play basketball, Eric organized games. The man somehow remembered everyone's names after meeting them once, which honestly felt suspicious. I can work with advanced engineering software, but I still introduce myself to people I've already met. Twice, sometimes 3 times. Meanwhile, Eric remembered birthdays. I barely remember my own passwords. Soon, everyone on the street knew him. And Jennifer talked about him a lot. Not obsessively, just casually. At first. Eric planted those flowers himself. Eric says the local high school football team is pretty good. Eric built his gazebo. Eric knows half the city. Eric volunteers with veterans. Eric cooks his ribs for 6 hours. That last one offended me personally. I had spent years perfecting my ribs, but I didn't think much of it. Because people compare things. That's normal. Besides, Jennifer had always admired hardworking people. She'd spent 16 years praising me for fixing sinks and surviving Home Depot on weekends. Why would this be different? The answer, apparently, was because I'm an idiot. The kind that misses warning signs because he's busy making sure everyone else is happy. Summer rolled on. Our pool parties became bigger. More neighbors, more food, more noise. And every single time Eric came over, the entire street seemed happier. Honestly, including me. He was fun to have around. The guy never bragged, never flirted, never acted superior. Half the time he'd actually help me with the grill. One Saturday afternoon, while we were flipping burgers, he said, "You built this setup yourself?" "Mostly." "Looks great. Thanks. My ex-wife always wanted something like this." I shrugged. Took years? Simple conversation? Nothing weird? Just two guys talking while pretending meat gave our lives meaning. Meanwhile, Jennifer was laughing with the other neighbors near the pool. Everything looked perfect. But later that night, after everyone left, she surprised me. "You know what I admire about Eric?" she asked. "Here we go." "What?" "He never just sits around." I stared at her. "I'm sorry, were you looking at another husband today?" She smirked. "You know what I mean." "No, I genuinely don't. He always has projects. So do I." "You know what I mean." Apparently, I didn't. Because I'd spent the entire summer building things, fixing things, paying for things, and occasionally sacrificing my sanity to chlorine maintenance. Still, I laughed it off. Because marriage teaches you an important lesson. Sometimes your spouse says weird things. Sometimes you say weird things. And usually you just move on. Unfortunately, that wasn't the last time I'd hear the phrase, "You know what I admire about Eric?" Looking back now, I should have paid attention to the comparisons. Not because Jennifer admired Eric. People admire people all the time. I admire Tom Hanks. That doesn't mean I want him moving into our guest bedroom. No, the problem wasn't admiration. The problem was that somehow admiration slowly turned into comparison. And comparisons have a funny way of making one person shine while another person slowly disappears. At first, the comments were harmless, or at least they sounded harmless. "Eric says we should try those burgers from Miller's downtown." "Eric says baseball season is going to be interesting this year." That last one nearly caused me physical pain, because my wife had spent 16 years treating sports the same way archaeologists treat ancient curses. Now suddenly, she knew batting averages. One evening, I walked into the living room and found Jennifer watching baseball. Voluntarily. I stood there for a full 10 seconds trying to determine whether I had entered the wrong house. She looked up. "Oh, hey." I pointed at the television. "Are we being robbed?" "What?" "Who are you, and what have you done with my wife?" She laughed. "Very funny." "No, seriously. Last year you said baseball was just men standing around in pajamas." "They're uniforms." "You called them pajamas, Jennifer." She shrugged. "I guess I'm trying new things," which sounded perfectly reasonable. Except 3 weeks later she suddenly cared about football too. Then sports documentaries. Then fitness. Then she joined a gym. Now let me say something. Jennifer was already beautiful. She always had been. At 42, she looked amazing. I told her that constantly. Unfortunately, husbands apparently receive fewer credibility points than random strangers on the internet. So she started going to the gym 4 times a week. New workout clothes, new hairstyles, new skincare products, new swimsuits. And I didn't mind any of it. Actually, I encouraged her. "Good for you," I said. "Thanks. Feeling better?" "I do." "Great. Because that's what husbands are supposed to say. Support your wife. Cheer her on. Pretend you understand why moisturizer costs the same as a small used car. Normal marriage stuff. But something else was changing too. Jennifer had always been social. Now she seemed performative, especially during parties. She became obsessed with everything looking perfect. The food, the decorations, the music, the drinks, the seating. Then came the first comment, the one I ignored. Big mistake. We were hosting one of our usual Saturday pool parties. Neighbors everywhere, kids splashing, music playing, the smell of burgers in the air, my natural habitat. I was telling one of my favorite stories. The story about Ethan accidentally setting off the smoke alarm trying to make microwave popcorn when he was 12. Classic material. Comedy gold. At least in my opinion. Then Jennifer smiled sweetly and said, "Scott, maybe skip this one. Everyone already heard it last summer." People chuckled awkwardly. I laughed too. Because what else are you supposed to do? Wow, I said. My own wife cutting my set short. Tough crowd tonight. Everybody laughed. Problem solved. Or so I thought. Later that night, I mentioned it. Hey, that was kind of brutal. Jennifer looked genuinely confused. What? The popcorn story thing. Oh, come on, I was joking. Didn't really feel like joking. Scott, you're too sensitive. Ah, yes, the official slogan of people who hurt your feelings. You're too sensitive. Not, I'm sorry. Not, I didn't mean it. No, apparently emotions are a software issue now. Still, I let it go. A couple weeks later, another party. Another strange moment. I was talking to a few neighbors about a camping trip we'd taken years ago. Everyone was laughing, even Eric. Then Jennifer walked past carrying drinks and casually said, "Scott, people don't come here for your stories. Could you just stay by the grill?" She laughed. A couple neighbors laughed too. Not because it was funny, because people laugh when they're uncomfortable. I know because I was doing it myself. Eric didn't laugh. He actually looked confused. But the conversation kept moving. And once again, I told myself I was overreacting. Because that's what good husbands do. We explain away things. We minimize things. We become defense attorneys for people who never asked for legal representation. That night, I brought it up again. "You embarrassed me," Jennifer sighed dramatically. "Scott, you're making a huge deal out of nothing." Nothing? It was a joke. What's the punchline? She rolled her eyes. God, sometimes you're exhausting. That one hurt more. Not because she was angry, because she sounded annoyed that I even had feelings. But the weirdest part? A few days later, she was completely normal again. Sweet, affectionate, funny, the woman I'd always known, which made me wonder if maybe I really was imagining things. Until the next party, and the next, and the next. Eventually I noticed something strange, because once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. Jennifer only became that version of herself when Eric was there. When he missed a barbecue, she was normal. When he was out of town, normal. When it was just family, normal. But whenever Eric showed up, my wife suddenly acted like I was the embarrassing dad in a Disney movie. And that realization sat in my chest like a brick. Because I still didn't think she was cheating. But I started asking myself a question I never thought I'd ask. Why does my wife seem ashamed of me only when one specific man is around? Once I noticed the pattern, I became one of those people. You know the type. The overthinkers. The amateur detectives. The human equivalent of a conspiracy podcast. Suddenly, I was tracking variables. Was Eric coming? Was Jennifer wearing one of the new swimsuits? How many times had she mentioned him this week? Did she laugh differently around him? Had she always laughed like that? Had I somehow forgotten how my own wife laughed? I felt ridiculous, like some middle-aged Sherlock Holmes investigating suburban nonsense. And the worst part? Nothing actually looked inappropriate. Jennifer wasn't sneaking around. Eric wasn't flirting. There were no mysterious phone calls. No late-night texts, no secret meetings, no suspicious behavior. If anything, Eric treated Jennifer exactly the same way he treated everyone else, which somehow made me feel even crazier. Because if a guy is obviously hitting on your wife, at least you know where to direct your anger. But Eric? Eric was just Eric. Friendly, respectful, normal. The man even complimented my brisket. You don't declare war on a man who compliments your brisket. That's practically a peace treaty. One Saturday afternoon, he walked over while I was grilling. "Smells incredible." "Thanks. What did you use?" "Trade secret." He grinned. "Come on." I signed an oath. He laughed. "Fair enough." Then he actually helped me carry trays to the patio. No arrogance, no showing off, no alpha male nonsense. Honestly, if somebody had told me then that I would eventually suspect him of ruining my marriage, I would have laughed in their face. Because from everything I could see, the guy wasn't doing anything wrong. Which left only one possibility. Maybe I was losing my mind. Jennifer, however, kept getting stranger. One evening she came home from the gym carrying a sports bag. "Guess what?" she said excitedly. "What?" "I signed up for couples tennis lessons." I nearly dropped my coffee. "Couples?" "Yeah," I smiled. "That sounds fun." Her expression changed slightly. "Actually, I was thinking maybe we could invite people." "People?" "Like neighbors." "Which neighbors?" "Oh, you know." "No, I didn't know." And sure enough, Eric used to play. Of course he did, because apparently this man had been assembled in a laboratory designed by women over 40. Handsome, helpful, athletic, good with tools. Probably rescued puppies in his spare time. Meanwhile, my greatest accomplishment that week had been successfully resetting the Wi-Fi router. "Scott?" I blinked. "Huh? You okay?" "Yeah." "You're making that face." "What face?" "The one you make when Ethan explains cryptocurrency." I laughed. "I'm fine." And I was. Except something had started happening inside me. Something ugly. Resentment. Not toward Eric. Toward myself. I started seeing all my flaws. The extra 15 pounds. The gray hair. The bad knee. The fact that I preferred documentaries over nightclubs. The fact that my idea of adventure involved Costco on Saturday mornings. I suddenly felt old. Predictable. Then came the comment that really stayed with me. We were cleaning up after another pool party. Sun setting. Kids inside. Just the two of us. Jennifer was putting away towels when she casually said, "Some men inspire women." I smiled. "Hopefully one of those men is me." She paused. Then she said, "Others just maintain the pool." And there it was. No smile. No, I'm kidding. I actually looked around to make sure someone else hadn't entered the conversation. "Excuse me?" She shrugged. "I didn't mean anything by it. I'm just saying some people naturally push others to become better." "And I don't?" "Scott, why do you always do this?" I stood there staring at her. Because for the first time in 16 years, I genuinely didn't recognize my wife. The woman who once cried when I surprised her with a weekend trip. The woman who told me building this house was her dream. Where had she gone? And who was this person standing in front of me? That night, I barely slept. Jennifer fell asleep beside me like nothing had happened. Meanwhile, I spent 3 hours staring at the ceiling. By 2 in the morning, my brain had reached its conclusion. There had to be an affair. Because honestly, an affair would have made more sense. Terrible, but simple. What I couldn't understand was this. Why would a woman who still kissed me goodbye every morning, who still said, "I love you," who still planned vacations with me, treat me like she was disappointed I existed? One Friday night, I actually convinced myself I'd finally caught something. Jennifer's phone buzzed while she was showering. The screen lit up. My heart practically exploded. There it was. A message. I glanced at the name. Her friend, Karen. The most dangerous thing Karen had ever done in her life was use expired coupons. I almost apologized to the phone. Meanwhile, I started paying closer attention to Eric, which felt ridiculous because the man himself kept making it impossible to dislike him. One Saturday morning, I walked outside and found him helping Ethan fix his bike. "Dad couldn't figure out the brakes," Ethan announced. "Traitor." "I could have figured it out," I said. "Eventually," Ethan replied. Eric grinned. "We're almost done." "Thanks." "No problem." 10 minutes later, Ethan rode away happy. Eric stood up. "Good kid." "Yeah." "You've done a great job with him." Simple sentence, but for some reason it hit me harder than it should have, because lately I felt like I was failing at everything. "Thanks," I said quietly. Then he nodded toward the backyard. "By the way, your pool setup is still the envy of the neighborhood." I laughed. Finally, my life's work receives recognition. I'm serious. Jennifer really loves this place. That sentence twisted something inside me. Because yes, she did. I'd built the backyard she'd dreamed about. And somehow lately, I felt like a maintenance employee in my own life. Still, Eric had no idea what was happening inside my head. Another pool party came and went. Another opportunity for Jennifer to audition for whatever invisible judges lived inside her head. This time I was talking with two neighbors about an old fishing trip. Everyone was laughing. Then Jennifer walked over carrying drinks. She smiled, that beautiful smile I'd fallen in love with 20 years earlier, and she said, "You're cute when you try to be social." Silence. The one where everyone suddenly becomes very interested in their cups. I forced a laugh. Good thing I married my biggest fan. People chuckled awkwardly, except Eric. He actually looked uncomfortable. A few minutes later, while I was checking the grill, he walked over beside me. "Everything okay?" he asked. "Sure? You sure? Why?" He shrugged. "Just asking." I smiled. "I'm good." And I meant it. Or at least I wanted to mean it, because admitting the truth would have sounded pathetic. "Hi, Eric. I think my wife only humiliates me when you're around. Any thoughts?" "No, thank you." That night, after everyone left, I finally snapped. "Why do you do that?" Jennifer frowned. "Do what?" "The comments." "What comments?" "You're cute when you try to be social." She rolled her eyes immediately. "Scott, seriously?" "Yes, seriously." It was a joke. At my expense. Oh my God. "No, Jennifer, answer the question." She crossed her arms. "Why are you so insecure lately?" "Because lately I feel like you're embarrassed by me." She stared at me. Then she actually laughed. Not cruelly. "Embarrassed by you?" "Yes." "Scott, we've been married 16 years. Exactly. So why would I suddenly be embarrassed by you?" "Good question. I wish I knew." Because I couldn't answer it, and apparently neither could she. Eventually she sighed. "I'm going to bed." That was it. Conversation over. Case dismissed. Husband declared emotionally defective. And I sat alone on the patio. The pool lights reflected off the water. The backyard I'd spent months building looked beautiful. Exactly like I'd imagined years earlier. Only somehow I felt completely alone inside it. That's when Lily stepped outside, still carrying her stuffed blanket, even though she'd die if her friends found out. She sat beside me. "You okay, Dad?" "Of course." "You're terrible at lying." "Thanks, sweetheart. Always nice to be supported by your own bloodline." She looked toward the house. "Mom's being weird lately." I slowly turned toward her. "What do you mean?" She shrugged. "I don't know. Different." "Different how?" "Like she's trying too hard." Before I could ask more, Lily stood up. "Good night, Dad." "Good night, kiddo." Then she stopped at the door and smiled. "For the record, your stories are still funny." "Even the popcorn one?" "Especially the popcorn one." And somehow that almost made me cry. Because sometimes the people who love you most are the ones who quietly remind you who you are. Unfortunately, I still believed I was looking for an affair. I had no idea that the truth waiting for me was somehow sadder than cheating. And the person who would accidentally reveal everything wasn't my wife, wasn't Eric, it was Eric's daughter, Emily. A few weeks later, we hosted another pool party. By then, I'd stopped hoping Jennifer would go back to normal. I just tried to survive Saturdays. The usual crowd showed up. Kids in the pool, neighbors drinking, music playing, Eric helping me with the grill, Jennifer acting like she was running a presidential campaign. At one point, Ethan and some boys started a basketball game. Lily disappeared upstairs with friends. Emily stayed near the patio, scrolling through her phone. I'd always liked Emily. She was sarcastic, smart, and brutally honest. Unfortunately, I was about to discover just how brutally honest. Jennifer was talking to a group of women nearby. I couldn't hear everything, but I heard my name. Then, laughter. A few minutes later, Jennifer walked by me and casually said, "Try not to tell the camping bear story again, okay? People are still recovering from last year." Some neighbors laughed. I smiled politely. Inside, I was exhausted. Jennifer walked away. Emily looked up from her phone. Then she frowned. "Wow." I forced a smile. Family tradition. She kept staring after Jennifer. She really does that every time. I looked at her. Every time what? Emily hesitated. Nothing. No, seriously. She suddenly looked uncomfortable. Dad always said I talk too much. I laughed. My daughter says the same thing about me. Emily smiled. Then she said the sentence that changed everything. I just don't understand why she acts like she's already divorced. My stomach dropped. What do you mean? She looked genuinely horrified. Wait. Silence. Then, Scott, you didn't know? My heart started pounding. Know what? Emily closed her eyes. Oh my God. Emily. She looked around nervously. I thought everybody knew. Knew what? She lowered her voice. Jennifer tells the women she's basically stuck. I felt cold. What? She says your marriage is practically over. I just stared at her. I shouldn't have said anything. What exactly has she been saying? Emily swallowed. That you stopped inspiring her. Another punch. That she settled. Another one. That sometimes life gives you the wrong person. I couldn't breathe. And she once said Dad reminds her of the kind of man she should have married. Silence. Complete silence. I turned toward Eric across the yard. He was laughing with Ethan, completely unaware. Does your father know any of this? Emily looked horrified. No. Nothing? Scott, my dad has absolutely no idea. You're sure? 100%. She shook her head immediately. My father would never do that. And honestly, she sighed, he'd be mortified. I believed her. Because suddenly, dozens of strange memories made sense. Eric never encouraged Jennifer, never flirted, never sought her attention. If anything, he'd always treated her exactly like everyone else. The fantasy existed only in one person's head. My wife had built an entire emotional relationship with a man who wasn't even participating. Emily looked ready to cry. I'm sorry. I forced a smile. It's not your fault. I really thought you knew. So did I. But the truth was worse. Because until that moment, I'd believed another man had stolen my wife. Now I realized something much uglier. She'd simply decided I wasn't enough anymore. I barely heard the rest of the party after talking to Emily. Wrong person. Settled. Should have married someone else. Those words just kept repeating inside my head. Across the yard, Jennifer was laughing with the other women like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't just accidentally become the reason I suddenly questioned 16 years of marriage. Eric was helping Ethan with the basketball hoop. Everyone looked happy. Everyone except me. I walked over to Jennifer. Hey Jen, can we talk for a minute? She smiled at the women. Excuse me, ladies? We walked around the side of the house, away from the music. She immediately noticed my face. Scott, what's wrong? I looked at her. What exactly have you been telling people about us? She blinked. What? You heard me. Scott, what are you talking about? I nodded slowly. So our marriage is basically over? Her eyes widened. Where is this coming from? So I stopped inspiring you? Scott? So you settled for me? Now she looked nervous. Who have you been talking to? I actually laughed. Wow, this is what is most important now in your opinion? Scott, you're taking things out of context. She crossed her arms. I never cheated on you. Funny thing, Jen. For months, I thought you were having an affair. Her face went pale. What? But apparently, I gave you too much credit. Excuse me? I looked toward the backyard. You know what's really sad? What? The man you're comparing me to doesn't even know he's competing. Scott, that's not fair. Then explain it. Silence. That's what I thought. Scott, I love you. I smiled sadly. I'm sure you do. Then stop acting like this. No, Jen, you stop. Her eyes filled with tears. Please don't do this. I shook my head. I'm not doing anything. Then quietly I said, if you're already looking for my replacement, Scott, then I won't stand in your way. That's not what I want. Really? Because lately it feels like you've already picked another life. I looked toward the pool, at the deck, at everything I'd spent years building. Enjoy your party, Jen. Then I turned and walked away. For the first time in 16 years, I left my own pool party. I drove around for almost an hour. No destination, no plan. Just me, my truck, and enough emotional damage to qualify for a country album. About 30 minutes later, there was a knock on the window of my truck. I nearly jumped. Eric. Of course, because apparently this man even performed surprise appearances professionally. I lowered the window. Should I ask how you found me? He shrugged. Your son said you like coming here. Mind if I sit? Sure. He sat on the tailgate beside me. Neither of us spoke for almost a minute. Then he finally said, "Rough night?" I laughed. You could say that. He nodded. I figured. Scott, I'm probably sticking my nose where it doesn't belong. Probably. But I'm doing it anyway. I smiled despite myself. Go ahead. He looked toward the lake. My marriage failed for a lot of reasons, but one thing my ex-wife never did. He turned toward me, was make me feel small in my own home. I looked at him. I don't know what you heard tonight, he continued, and I don't want to know, but nobody deserves that. I swallowed hard, because somehow hearing that from another man hit differently, especially this man. The man I'd spent months secretly resenting. The man I thought had stolen something from me, he continued. You know what I saw when I moved into this neighborhood? What? A guy who built half his backyard with his own hands. I smiled weakly, mostly with YouTube. Still counts. He laughed. Your kids adore you. Your neighbors respect you. Hell, I'm jealous of your brisket. That's fair. I'm serious, Scott. He looked me straight in the eye. Whatever's happening between you and Jennifer. He paused. Don't start believing you're less than you are. Silence. Then he added quietly, and for the record, if my ex-wife had spoken to me the way Jennifer talks to you sometimes. He shook his head. We would have divorced a lot sooner. That one hurt, because the man Jennifer had apparently idealized was sitting beside me defending me. After another minute, Eric stood up. Sorry for interrupting. Just thought you might want to talk. I'm heading home. Thanks. He nodded. Get some sleep. Then he stopped. Oh, and Scott? Yeah? Next weekend, I'm bringing my own ribs. I laughed. Challenge accepted. He grinned, and then he left. I sat there alone again, but for the first time in months, I no longer felt like I was competing with Eric, because the real problem had never been Eric. The real problem was waiting for me back home. When I came home that night, the party was over. The lights around the pool were still on, but the backyard felt strangely empty. Jennifer had been crying. The kids had already gone to their rooms. For the first time in 16 years, our house didn't feel like home. Over the next few weeks, Jennifer apologized constantly. She admitted she'd become obsessed with other people's approval and had slowly turned comparisons into disappointment. She insisted she never wanted another man and that she never realized how deeply she had hurt me. And I believed her. That was the problem. I believed she loved me. I believed she regretted everything. But I also understood something I couldn't ignore. A person can love you and still break something they can't put back together. Eventually, I told Jennifer I wanted a divorce. Not because of Eric, not because of some affair, but because I no longer wanted to spend the rest of my life wondering whether the woman beside me secretly wished she had chosen someone else. The hardest part wasn't ending the marriage. It was accepting that I deserved better than being someone's good enough. The divorce itself stayed peaceful. We focused on Ethan and Lily. Jennifer moved into a smaller house nearby, and over time we learned how to be good co-parents again. As for Eric, nothing changed between us. In fact, we became friends. Ironically, The man I once thought I had to compete with ended up being one of the people who helped me remember my own worth. To this day, we still argue about barbecue recipes and football every Sunday. Funny enough, after everything ended, I finally realized something. I was never the wrong man. I was simply giving the right kind of love to someone who had stopped appreciating it. And that's no longer my burden to carry. If you felt this story hit hard, drop a like, subscribe for more, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support keeps Steelheart beating.